In 1925, Erwin Schrödinger, one of the founding fathers of the quantum mechanics and the man behind the famous Schrödinger's cat, remember that? He was struggling. He was wrestling with the implications of the new physics. If particles are waves and observation changes reality, what does that say about the nature of the world? Schrödinger didn't turn to a physics textbook for answer. He didn't turn to Western religion either. He turned to a collection of texts written 2,800 years ago in the forests of northern India. He wrote, "In all the world, there is no kind of framework within which we can find our bearings so securely and consistently as in the Upanishads." Friends, let's talk about this subject that is often misunderstood, the Upanishads. If you're a skeptic, a rationalist, or someone who breaks into hives at the mention of spirituality, I want you to stay with me. Because the Upanishads aren't what you think they are. They aren't a massive dusty book of commandments. They don't ask you to believe in a specific deity with, a bird sitting in the sky. They don't threaten you with hellfire either. Actually, here's a surprise for you. They are incredibly short. You could read the most important ones in a lazy afternoon. So for the next few minutes, please put aside your preconceptions. We will look at the Upanishads not as scripture, but as the rigorous intellectual heritage of humanity. Before we get into the heavy philosophy, let's clear up the confusion. What exactly is an Upanishad? To understand that, we have to look at the Vedas. You've probably heard of them. They are the massive religious texts of ancient India, dating back to maybe 1500 BCE or actually way earlier. Think of the Vedas as a huge library. The bulk of this library is dedicated to rituals. We called this the Karma Kanda. It's a how-to manual. It tells the priests exactly how to build the fire altar, exactly what chant to sing, and exactly when to pour the ghee, the clarified butter in the oven. So the gods will grant you rain or cattle or victory in the battle. It was transactional. You do this, you get that. But then at the very end of these massive texts, you find the Upanishads. Literally, they are often found at the end of the Veda collection. That's why they are also called Vedanta, which means the end of the Veda. But they are also the end in terms of goal. If the earlier parts of the Vedas are about manipulating the world, like getting rain, getting rich, the Upanishads are about understanding the world. Let me give an example. Imagine a cookbook. The first 90% is recipes. Chop this, boil that. That's the ritualistic Vedas. The last chapter, though, suddenly stops giving recipes and starts explaining the chemistry of heat and flavor molecules. It stops telling you how to cook and asks, what is hunger? That is Upanishad. Now, as I said earlier, this is what shocks most people. The Upanishads are tiny. If you go to a bookstore and buy a Bible or a Quran, it's a thick, heavy book. But if you pick up the Mandukya Upanishad, one of the most profound ones, it's literally 12 verses long. You can read it in 60 seconds. Even the longest ones, like the Brihadaranyaka, are just a collection of short dialogues. But why so short? Because these weren't textbooks written to be skimmed. They were oral traditions. They were mnemonics. Back then, you didn't have Wikipedia. You had a teacher. The Upanishad was like a zip file of profound wisdom. The teacher would give you a short, cryptic verse, and you would spend weeks, maybe months, unzipping it in your mind during meditation. They are dense, high concentration philosophy, no fluff. The word Upanishad literally translates to sitting down near. It implies a student sitting near a teacher, in a forest away from the noise of the village rituals, whispering about the secret nature of reality. Okay, so we have these short, punchy texts. What are they actually saying? If you remember nothing else from this episode, remember these two words, friends: Atman and Brahman. In Western thought, we are used to dualism. There is God and there is the world. There is the soul and there is the body. There is me and there is you. The Upanishads propose a radical monoism. But first, let's define Brahman. This is not God in the Abrahamic sense. Brahman is not a guy. It has no gender, no personality, no ego. Brahman is the name given to the ultimate reality, the ground of all being. Think of it like energy in physics or the quantum field. It cannot be created or destroyed. It just takes different forms. Like the ocean is Brahman. The wave is just a temporary form of the ocean. Now, Atman. This is usually translated as self or soul, but those words carry too much religious baggage. Atman is pure consciousness. It is the observer within you. Think about it. See, you are not your thoughts. Thoughts change. You are not your body. Your body ages. As Sadhguru says, both body and thoughts are things that you collected from your surroundings. They are your thoughts and your body. What is yours cannot be you. You are the thing that is aware of the thoughts and the body. That flashlight of awareness, that is Atman. Now, here is the thunderbolt. The central thesis of the Upanishads is found in the phrase Tat Tvam Asi. It translates to you are that. The claim here is that Atman, which is a consciousness within you, is identical to Brahman, the reality of the universe. Let me explain this with an analogy from the Chandogya Upanishad, which is my favorite for skeptics. A father, Uddalaka, is teaching his son Shwetaketu. He tells the boy to bring a fruit from a banyan tree and break it open. The boy does it and says, I see tiny seeds. The father says, break a seed. What do you see? The boy says, nothing. It's empty. The father replies, my son, from that subtle essence which you do not perceive, this great tree grows. That essence is the self of the world. That is the real. That is the self. And you, Shwetaketu, are that. The Upanishads argue that we suffer because we identify with the wave. Our small separate ego. And we forget we are the ocean, Brahman. Now, I can hear the skeptics. That sounds nice and all, but it's just poetry. It's woo-woo. But is it? The Upanishads were the first to rigorously analyze subject-object relationships. In modern neuroscience, we are trying to solve the hard problem of consciousness. We can map the brain, we can see neurons firing, but we cannot explain how that physical matter gives rise to the subjective feeling of being me. The Upanishads took a phenomenological approach. They analyzed the waking state, the dream state, and deep sleep. See, in deep sleep, your ego is gone. Your memories are gone. Your body awareness is gone. But you still exist. You wake up and say, I slept well. Who was the I that was there to witness the nothingness? They stripped away everything that wasn't essential to find the common denominator of experience. This is very similar to the scientific method of reductionism, but applied to the internal world. Furthermore, The concept of Brahman aligns comfortably well with the modern field theory. Quantum field theory suggests that particles are just excitations of underlying fields that permeate all of space. Matter isn't solid, it's a vibration of a field. When the Isha Upanishad says all this is pervaded by the Lord, which is a reality, and denies the solidity of separate objects, it is making a metaphysical claim that physics is slowly approaching from the other direction. The historian Will Durant said it best. The Upanishads are the oldest extant philosophy and psychology of our race. They are the solace of my life and will be the solace of my death. Friends, so how do we use this? Is this just intellectual gymnastics? No. Because the Upanishads are short and dense, they are meant to be practical tools. Consider the analogy of the chariot from the Katha Upanishad. Imagine a chariot. The chariot itself is the body. The horses are the senses pulling you toward desires, food, sex, entertainment. The reins are the mind, full of emotions and thoughts. The driver is the intellect, where you have reasoning, decision making. And the passenger inside, that is the Atman, the self. The problem, the Upanishads say, is that for most of us, the horses are drunk. The senses are running wild, dragging the chariot off the road. The mind, the reins, is flapping loosely. The driver, which is the intellect, is asleep. And the passenger is being taken for a terrifying ride. This isn't mysticism. This is a perfect description of addiction, distraction, and anxiety. The solution is not to kill the horses. You don't become an ascetic. The solution is to wake up the driver, to use your intellect to hold the reins of the mind and guide the senses. The goal of the Upanishads is moksha or liberation. But for the skeptic, let's call it ultimate freedom. It is a freedom from the compulsion of your own conditioning. We live in a time of extreme fragmentation, friends. We're anxious, constantly seeking validation from the outside world. The Upanishads offer a 3,000-year-old antidote. And the best part, you don't have to read thousands of pages to get it. You can pick up the Katha Upanishad or the Isha Upanishads today, read it in like 20 minutes, and then spend the rest of your life unpacking it. You don't have to believe in a God to appreciate them. You just have to be curious about the very fact that you are aware. So here is my challenge to you. Don't take my word for it. Pick up a copy of the Eknath Easwaran translation of the Upanishads. It's very accessible actually. Read the dialogue with death in the Katha Upanishad. You might just find that the universe is not a cold, empty place, but that you are, in the deepest sense, at home. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. This is Bharat Leads. Jai Hind.